Good afternoon. Welcome to this quick webcast from the Ohio LTAP Center. Wanted to introduce our speaker today. We have Rich Winning, who is our innovation lead here at the DOT, and he is going to be speaking to you about the State Transportation Innovation Council's STIC Opportunity Grant that is available this year. Just a couple of quick items before I turn things over to Rich. We do have a questions section in the GoToWebinar panel, and we would ask that you enter any questions you have for Rich there in that section. He will be addressing those questions when we get to the end of the presentation. Other than that, I believe that is all I needed to share for right now. So, Rich, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Victoria, and thank you for inviting me today. Again, my name is Rich Winning. I'm the Executive Financial Advisor for the Ohio Department of Transportation. I do multiple things, including helping finance. I manage or coordinate the State Transportation Innovation Council, as well as a couple other things here. So. I am trying to figure out how to advance my slide. Oh, there it goes.
You got it?
Yeah.
Usually there you go. Okay.
So the State Transportation Innovation Council for Ohio has been in place since 2014. It kind of died back. The activity died back there for a little while. So we reinvigorated it back in 2019. And I was asked if I'd be interested in coordinating that. And I said, absolutely, because I lead the One Red Line initiative for the Ohio Department of Transportation, which focuses on saving $100 million over the first 4 years of the DeWine administration. So kind of seemed to be a good fit. So I've been very proud of how far we've come with the State Transportation Innovation Council. Our makeup of the State Transportation Innovation Council in Ohio, we have two co-chairs. The first is Dave Slater, who is ODOT's Chief Engineer and Assistant Director of Transportation Policy, as well as Lori Leffler, who is the Division Administrator of the Ohio Division of FHWA. And I work with both of those. And also, I have an actual counterpart at the Ohio Division of FHWA. His name is Dan Brodhag. So he and I both co-coordinate the STIC for Ohio. The STIC has a vision and a mission, and I'm not going to read those off to you, but in essence, what it is our goal or our job for the Ohio STIC is to identify and advance innovations in Ohio using a team or a group approach with state government, federal government, local public agencies, and federal agencies, and some of our private counterparts. Our current STIC membership consists of ODOT, FHWA, LTAP, including Victoria and Andrea, many local public agencies. We have MPOs and RTPOs represented. We also have contractors through OCA, as well as consultants through ACEC. We have multiple federal resource agencies, and our most recent addition is that we also have universities as part of our STICs. We're pretty proud of that. We also include subject matter experts and other advisory members as we deem appropriate for the various STIC meetings and topics. Part of the mission of the STIC is to administer what we call STIC incentive funding. So with the FHWA STIC incentive program, it provides resources to help foster a culture for innovation and make innovations a standard practice in their states. And I can tell you one of the things that was a focus for us when we reinvigorated the STIC 3 years ago now. One of my first meetings was with Tim McDonald and Victoria Beal, and one of the things that was really lacking here in Ohio was a focus on local government agencies with regard to the STIC. So we wanted to make sure that our LPA partners were strongly represented, and I think we've done a really good job of that through partnership with Andrea and Victoria. So, but through the program, funding up to $100,000 per state per federal fiscal year is made available to support or offset the costs of standardizing those innovative practices, either through the state or through one of our public sector partners, our LPAs. So what many of you that are involved in the LTAP program should have already received a message through the listserv back on April 28th, and that listserv or that email message talked about the STIC incentive program, and it also included a link to the application, and I've added that link here as well. So hopefully you guys have all had that. If not, you can feel free to reach out to Victoria or myself, and we can make sure that we provide that to you. For this year's STIC incentive funding timeline for 2022, we actually opened the application process on April 20th. This year, we've given a little more time for the applications to be submitted. Last year, they were due June 8th, but we're given a couple more weeks this year. So the applications are due to me no later than the close of business on June 21st. And what I will do then is we actually, as part of the STIC, we have a STIC incentive funding subcommittee established that consists of multiple partners on the STIC, and our job is to evaluate, score, and recommend top submittals for the $100,000 to the full STIC. Our timeline is that we have to do that by July 13th, and then we will present those to the full STIC body, and they are required to vote on our recommendations by July 20th. They could fully accept our recommendations, they could partially accept them, or they could reject them. It all depends on how good of a job our subcommittee does. And then lastly, the last step of the process is I have to forward on the formal selections from the Ohio STIC to FHWA. So that is our timeline this year. So that's very important. To give you some perspective on some of the previous STIC incentive awards, I'm not going to go through these individually, but starting here in 2014 through 2017, you can see there's quite a mix of awards that have went to LPA type topics and issues and entities, as well as ODOT related ones. And many of them are crossover where we're partnering together. So pretty proud that the Ohio STIC overall has done a good job of representing local partners. What we did do last year is we actually formalized the application process that you guys have access to today. And we actually have the very open and transparent process now. So we're really hopeful that we get a lot of applicants or applications from LPAs. Last year when we opened it up, we only had 2, and we're hopeful that we get more this year. So moving forward to the last few years, 2018 through 2021. 2021 is the first year that we had a formal application process to go through, and we did award 3 projects last year. You can see the projects and the amounts. This one was a local project number 1. The middle one was an ODOT project through our UAS division. And then the last one was a local project as well. Unfortunately, this third project couldn't proceed due to scope issues in the end. So the $34,000 that was initially awarded to this one was actually split between these top 2 projects here. So again, we're very hopeful that we have more LPA projects request applications this year. So that's all I had to share today. So wanting to know, Victoria, did we have any questions?
There's no questions currently, but that's not to say someone isn't already typing. I think one thing that a lot of people might have a question about, Rich, is this just an Ohio thing that where we're giving out $100,000? Or
No, that's a really good question, Victoria. No, the answer is not. It's just an Ohio thing. Every state has a STIC established, and every state gets allotted $100,000. Now, whether or not they do what they need to do to receive that $100,000, I'm not sure of that, but I do know that Ohio has always received their $100,000. We've always went through the steps of that. And I'm going to stop sharing this PowerPoint here, and I want to share a couple other screens here before maybe we take some questions. First I want to go to, I'm going to back up. I want to go to, I referred to an email that Victoria and LTAP sent out back on April 28th. This is the email that you should have received that talks about the STIC. There's a link here that to the actual FHWA STIC incentive project site that goes through the projects that I just reviewed. And then lastly, this is a link to where the application is warehoused for 2022. So I encourage you to go out there and look at all that information, and don't hesitate to give me a call. My contact information is right here, so I'm always available to talk about STIC or innovations. And then the other thing that I wanted to share real briefly is the actual application itself, and I think this is very important. So I'm not going to bore you with all the different pieces of this, but there's links to different things in here. This is a link to the STIC guidance. There's some required information, some header information, scope, potential cost savings, a minimum eligibility requirements that you have to meet, talking about your time frame for implementation, and then how your project might relate to the everyday accounts initiatives. And then also, too, very important is oftentimes what we find ourselves, the situation we find is we have multiple applications that warrant some type of or merit some type of award. So oftentimes the requester doesn't get the full amount requested. So you have to consider, if you're partially awarded, whether or not you could fund the part that we don't award. And then the other thing that I want to touch on here is we actually have our scoring criteria, which I think is very important. You can see here some of the ground rules that we have: no research projects. The other thing that we don't allow is we don't pay for in-house labor, because we want to fund the innovation and not just supplement different entities' labor. But you can see here the criteria and what is the most important in the STIC incentive funding subcommittee's minds. What gets you the highest amount of points? So you can looky there. And then there's also one last section down here that talks about how you might do a cost savings analysis, and then just an example of that, because some people may not be familiar with how to calculate cost savings, and that kind of helps feed up into this part up here in question number, sorry, I'm moving around, question number 5. So I wanted to cover those 2 additional things too.
Is there a match required for the grant?
There's absolutely a match required. Thank you for pointing that out, Victoria. The match required is 20%. So for example, if you have a project that costs $100,000 and you're looking for the maximum federal share, of that would be $80,000. Your match would be $20,000. And then of course you would scale it down for projects smaller than that. So a 20% minimum match is required.
And then you had mentioned everyday counts. Can you just give a little bit of background on how they would go about finding information on that to see if their proposed innovation might fit one of the everyday counts?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Victoria. So actually, when you get down into this this question number 7, it talks about how your innovation that you're applying for might relate to everyday counts initiatives. What you can do is there's an actual link to the everyday counts initiative. You can click on that link, and I just did, and we'll let it pull up here. And this talks about the everyday counts initiatives. We're actually in round everyday counts round 6 right now. So if you're interested in finding out if your innovation that you want to apply for funding for relates to any of these, if you click on any one of these rounds, it talks about the various innovations related to each one of those rounds. And you can do that for EDC 6 through all the way back to EDC 1. We're still promoting even some of these older innovations, because oftentimes they still aren't a standard practice across the states and even within our local public agencies. So does that answer your question, Victoria?
Yep, it sure does. And one thing that I know that you and I have talked about before, Rich, is that, an innovation for a state DOT can look very different than an innovation for a local public agency. So, they could be looking to innovate something at the local public agency level that maybe we've been doing at ODOT for a while, but just hasn't transferred to a local public agency, right, Rich?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And one thing that I want to point out, and Victoria brings up a very good point, innovation can happen on any scale. So don't feel like, your innovation has to be this multi-million dollar, savings idea. It can be a very small idea that will help your local agency on your own scale. So we're not looking for necessarily these big $1 million savings ideas. It can be a much smaller innovation that will help your entity save money.
Yeah, but once you save the money and then you multiply that out amongst all the other agencies that we will hopefully share it with, it could end up being a multi-million dollar idea. So,
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And that's one of the things that we ask is that if we do end up providing you funding for your innovation, that you are willing to help share your innovation to other LPAs and other states when the time comes.
that's so fantastic, and it's such a great program, Rich. Thank you so much for, giving the explanation today about the current application cycle and funding cycle. I don't have any more questions in the question box, so we won't keep you for the full half an hour because these are intended to be quick webcasts. But we will be putting a copy of this recording out on our website along with that application. So if you want to watch it again, or someone who is interested in applying and you want to share the link with them, we would definitely encourage you to do that. And Rich, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, and if anybody's interested in receiving a copy of this PowerPoint, they can reach out to me directly as well.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope to see applications from each and every one of you who've joined us today. Take care.
Thank you.